Okay.
Hi, I'm Brad Skiles. I'm in Warsaw, Indiana, and I'm going to interview tonight Kathy and Scott, who have a ministry, really. I didn't used to think of it that way, but it really is a ministry teaching kids phonics and how to read. And so part of what happened in setting up this interview today is a friend, gave me an interview with Alex Newman, where he talks about the history of really kind of reading, I guess I would say, in America. And he talks about a particular point in time when whole word learning was proposed instead of phonics. And this will sound like some, tinfoil hat conspiracy thing, but it is absolutely true. And I've lived it. My generation of kids in California were taught whole word learning, and I suffer from it today. My wife tells me I should have a class action suit against the state of California. But what Alex was talking about is there was a plan to hurt America's kids and prevent them from being good students. And that's why his research is showing that this was adopted. So Kathy, to probably most of our listeners, that sounds bizarre, but I don't think it is to you. So you tell us your perspective of that view. And I think in that perspective, tell us kind of how you got into what you're doing now.
Okay. Um, when I went to college back in the 80s, I graduated in 1983. Um, the big buzzword back then was whole language. And being that I was young and just thought, well, somebody at the college level, they know what they're talking about. I bought into the whole idea of this whole language. And at the time, I had no idea that this was a fad that was blowing through the time, and that I just happened to graduate at this time when this was the big thing. And I even remember when I went to do my student teaching, because I thought, I was fresh out of college and I knew all this stuff and I was ready to go out there because I was told that phonics is old and outdated and nobody teaches this way anymore and you need to be on the cutting edge and progressive. I bought into all that. I go out to student teach. I walk into the classroom and the teacher has phonics books and phonics charts. And I remember thinking, why is she using this stuff? I was just told it's old and outdated. Well, fast forward, I got a teaching job, and it took me a few years to realize that even with a master's degree in education and a professionalized reading endorsement, that I had never really been taught how to teach a child to read phonetically, just using the basic phonics and the basic structure of the English language. So I was kind of like, wow, I didn't realize that I came out of school during a time when this was kind of just the big popular thing. Then talk about going down a rabbit hole. I started doing some research on my own. I found out that this whole phonic versus sight reading, this has been a war that's been raging and da da da. And when you're teaching full time and you're just trying to get in there every day, you don't have a lot of time to really sit and think, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is what I'm told to do. This is what the materials have. So took me a few years of teaching to realize I really didn't know how to teach a child to read. I could tell you all the different theories and all that. So in 1995, I was fortunate enough to um, meet an elderly lady by the name of Mercedes Russo, who taught phonics in a little school in her backyard. Now, doesn't that just sound, it's like, what? And at the time, I was living in Indianapolis, and this was in New Palestine, and people said, oh, you need to meet Mercedes. She teaches phonics in her backyard in a one-room school. And I thought, I just couldn't figure it out. So I called her one day and I said, can I just come over and see what you, she said, I would be delighted to have you come over. So there's little Kathy, like few years of teaching under my belt. I went over there with my legal pad and I met this woman with this awesome, amazing phonics chart that her mother wrote. It's a crazy, unbelievable, awesome story. And I was fortunate enough to just sit and be her little apprentice and just learn all these things that I had never been taught before. And the smart chart, which I happen to have right next to me, is what I saw hanging on her wall. And I saw her take kids that would find their way out to her little one room school, and parents would pay her to tutor their kids. And I was so flabbergasted and so awestruck by what I saw. I'm like, I have to learn this. So I did. And I got pretty good at it. And I asked her a gazillion questions, and I would call her all the time. And she taught me how to mark words. She taught me so many things that I soaked it all up. So I started tutoring kids using her method. And oh my goodness, it worked like a charm. And so I was like, why is nobody doing this? Where did this go? I mean, this little lady's in her backyard in a one room school, which isn't like a little brick school, just a little white, very humble building. And these are kids that were coming from Shelbyville, Rushville, the Indianapolis area, all different. It wasn't, I mean, a lot of people say that, oh, phonics gets pegged so many misconceptions, like, oh, only certain groups of this group or that group need phonics. That is all hogwash. Everybody needs this because it's just the basics of our language. So I learned from her, and I got really good at this, took it back into the public school system, and then my phone started ringing off the hook because people want something that works. And this was working. And I did a lot of teacher training. That would have been in the early 2000s. And then I'm going to fast forward this story. So many people said to me, what is this? What is this chart that you're using? What is all this thing I keep reading? There was a big article in the paper. So I started tutoring a lot of kids, and I still worked full time and still was teaching. And then one day I just had this notion that, what about all these kids out there that need this and are not getting this? How can I reach all of these kids? So that's when I kind of came up with the idea of reading boot camp. And so another teacher and I started that in early 2000. We just started in a little tiny building behind my church. And then we just kept growing and growing and growing, went from one place to another. And currently, fast forward up to 2024, we now have a not-for-profit called Reading Boot Camp. And so my husband and I, we run this program, and we teach other people how to do this program. And kids come to it for absolutely nothing. It's absolutely free for kids to come to. That makes my teacher heart really happy that we can reach that many kids, and we do this for no fee. Now it costs money to put it on, but the kids currently come for absolutely free.
So how many volunteers do you have?
Well, we meet on Tuesday nights from 5 to 7, and we have anywhere from 10 to 25 volunteers. It kind of varies, because the good thing is we can take retired people, we can take grandmas, aunts, anybody that knows how important it is that kids get this, and I can train them to do this. So it's not difficult to train a volunteer. And it just kind of varies from week to week how many volunteers we have. And we can even use older students. We can use college students. We can use anybody. That last week we had 19 students come and help from Indiana State, and we had about 9 from Rose-Hulman come to volunteer.
Okay, so Scott, let me bring you into this. Both of you been married coming on 2 years.
Yep.
I'm assuming you knew what Kathy was involved in before you got married. But was there a time when all of this was new to you and you were trying to figure out whether this was really a worthwhile project?
Well, the first time I saw the smart chart, I'm like a lot of people. I'm like, what in the world is that? I don't get it. But we had some conversations. Personally, I homeschooled my son, and we used the Abeka curriculum back then, which is still a top-notch program for homeschooling people, and a lot of people still use them. A lot of the public or private schools use them too, but it didn't take long, because I started kind of dabbling around on her website to kind of look and see what she does. And it's like, man, this just, I get it. I mean, I totally understood right off the bat what it was. And it's, it didn't take long. Like I said, I came on board with it. It's something that we need. It's extremely disheartening to listen, um, and these kids that are a result of the pandemic and all that fallout, the pandemic lag that they're talking about now, to hear a fourth grader or a fifth grader or a sixth grader struggle so badly with reading that it just, it's this is what needs to be done. And we talked about it, and it's like, this is just, it's a necessary thing to get these kids going. And it's kind of been, for me, when I look at the stats right now, and I know we talk about it a lot and we listen a lot because we talk to a lot of people wherever we go about this, and the things that people are telling to us and that we hear a lot of is, man, the level of people I've got trying to hire in, they can't read, they can't count, they don't know what money is, they don't know how to handle it. It's like, wow. And then you look at the stats, and it's published that this past year that the average college freshman is only reading on a 7th grade level. And that right there that blows your mind. It's like, okay, you're a freshman in college and you're reading on a 7th grade level. And
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah, because
yeah, right.
so much of it. And then I just saw the other day a stat that came out, and they said this past year, over the last couple of years, the SAT scores have dropped dramatically. They are the worst scores that they've ever seen in the history of the program. So it's like, that tells you something there as well. So I'm like, no, this is just crazy. And then I've seen the progress. We've got one little boy that started a year ago, and I looked at her and I'm like, oh man, this little boy, he's in trouble. And now he's been coming for a year with the program off and on, but he's a pretty steady attendee of both our tutoring program and reading boot camp. That kid's on the honor roll, and his mother's like, used to be, oh, we could just spell a word. We didn't have to worry about him being able to figure out what it was. Now she said, I can't do it. I can't make initial. I can't do anything. He figures everything out now. He is on the honor roll. Well, it's just crazy. So yeah.
Okay, I know you have lots of stories like that. That's awesome. And what you're telling us, Scott, is you really caught the passion that Kathy has for this, and that's awesome.
Right.
And now we're gonna kind of
I asked her the very first June of 2021. I said, "Do you need some help? Is somebody reading boot camp?" And she's like, "Sure, come on." So, and that's when it all started. So
yeah, that's awesome. So we're gonna fast forward again. We got hooked up through really more political activism, but then we really started, big things started to happen when you got involved in Pakistan and a ministry that's going on there, which I have some, involvement in, I guess I would say. So just to speed that up, both of you are doing videos each week, and Kathy's been lesson planning, and there's about 50 kids in a dirt poor village in Pakistan that are learning phonics probably better than most of their peers in the US, because most of the peers in the US are not using your smart chart and your own ideas about how to do this. So it's been massive change. And that's really what helped me to see that this is a very significant ability. If a person can learn phonics and English and reading, their self-esteem changes, their potential changes, and I guess we would say there's a lot of emotional and perhaps even spiritual things that start to happen. So my first question is, why are you doing that? Why are you spending a fair amount of your time to produce curriculum here for these kids in Pakistan?
Well, first, when I found out about it, I thought, gosh, how am I going to do this? And I just took my phone and I just made some lessons up. and I sent them over there, and I thought, well, we'll just get some feedback. And the neatest thing happened is that when I send a lesson with big vocabulary words, like, you think sending things to somebody who is learning English, they've got dictionaries, so they can look these words up in their Urdu English dictionary. So I don't hold back. I mean, I sent, when we were talking about philanthropy, I sent the philanthropy words over to them, and any big words that we're working on over here, I send them to Pakistan. And then I see the kids on the floor, I see them put up on the wall, and they're writing their words down in their notebooks, and they're looking them up, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever, because I class in Pakistan, and I don't know how far reaching it is, but everything that I've seen come back for the feedback is that the kids are really taking to it, and it's fun. I love to do it.
Well,
It's very,
you do make it fun.
oh
Okay, you
yeah.
do make it fun, no doubt about it. All right, so oh, I want to move on, but let me kind of give this picture to the audience here. We have one location that you're working with in Pakistan, and we're just waiting to see how God develops things, because quite frankly, this could be the year when you could have multiple locations doing the same thing in Pakistan. And then, not to scare you, but it would be very easy for me to perceive that you could be in Nigeria. We have contacts there with the work going on that could benefit from what you're doing. Cambodia, Thailand, Brazil, India. Those are very real possibilities someday, that if God wanted to open the door, and now, even let me just say this, again, I don't know what God has planned. Right now, it's good that we only have one thing to think about, but the public school teachers in Pakistan were asking these kids who they used to tease and make fun of, because Pakistan is a class system where poor Christian kids are at the bottom of the totem pole, and even their teachers will abuse them for that. But now the teacher is asking to see their notes and trying to figure out, how did these kids learn this? So I think it'd be possible that, we could probably take what you're doing into, at least that one school. But who knows? I mean, I have no idea what God wants to do. But it's interesting, when you located into your new building last year, you're calling it world headquarters. And that is what it should be, right? I think there's a vision here for what could happen. But what I want to talk about now is, I think the people who are listening here could really benefit from this. So what is your latest project, and how can that help anyone who's watching this?
Okay. Currently, we are doing school year reading boot camp. We do that once a week, and we're also preparing for our summer program, which will be a week long, June 10th through the 14th. And that is a program that we run it from 10 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, all with volunteers.
Wow.
The theme this year is called Our Community Cares. So in addition to doing the phonics and the word chopping and all that, we're going to bring in some people from our community. We're going to have American Heroes Day, where we bring in the law enforcement, first responders, and people in our community. So our summer program really branches out and does a lot more than our school year program, because we have a lot more time during the day, and it's a full-blown program, and the kids love it. We've already had people saying, when's your summer program going? So that's one of the projects we're working on. Also, we are planting these reading boot camps in different areas. In New Whiteland, Indiana, Kim Laverno has got a program in her church there. They're going great. They love it. So we're trying to get these established, because our belief is, if we can take care of our own backyard, and everybody can take care of their own backyard,
Yeah.
then these backyards will eventually connect. And I mean, gosh, if I can teach a class in Pakistan from Indiana, with very little technology, there's no reason why people shouldn't be setting these up all over in our country and all over the world. It's that simple.
Yeah. Right. So, okay, so is this like a franchise? Not that there's money involved, but can someone take your work who doesn't know anything about this? Can they have access to your work and actually know what to do?
They need to come in for some training, but we also are working on training videos that will go along with the package. They have to buy the kit, and then in the kit you get the smart chart and you'll get an instruction manual and all that. I'll tell you, the best way for someone to learn this is to come and experience it. And if they can't experience it in person, they can experience it through the videos and things that we put on our website or Facebook, however we can get to them.
Yeah. Okay, so you're really, from what we talked about earlier, you're really hoping that you can, in a sense, provide material for homeschoolers, which
Absolutely.
means if that's what you're targeting, anybody. So, for example, when I talked to my sister about this, she wants to use it for her grandkids. So everything that you have would be applicable, that at some point here, somebody could get the resources on your website and learn how to use it. They could watch the videos. They could watch what you're doing in Pakistan and, simulate that. But anyway, we don't know where God's going, but I think it's a much bigger than how it started, right? I guess we'd say that.
Good thing about this is I've had teachers call me and say, I really don't like our reading program. It has no fun. I'm like, this can be supplemental. You can put it in what you're already using. It can be foundational. It can be so many things. It's so universal. And that's what I love about this is that the classroom teacher, and I was a classroom teacher for 38 years. My heart is with classroom teachers. They are leaving education by the droves. There are people just say, I'm done. And that bothers me that so many teachers are leaving, but we won't get into all the other reasons, but mainly, this can save a teacher. This can save a homeschooler. This can save anybody who wants to teach another, even an adult. An adult can, it's so universal. That's what I love about it.
That's great. So I've been around so much in terms of political activists, and we're in a cycle right now where many of us share values that we think are purposefully trying to be destroyed in this country. And, one solution, I don't know if it's a good solution, but one avenue is trying to replace the people who make those decisions, and that's needed. Obviously, we need God to really bring a revival to this country and return us back to our roots. But what you illustrate, and it's happening with other things, it's just that this happens to be the topic tonight, but what you illustrate is taking a very practical approach to help our children to actually learn, because our school is not doing that. And we have dumbed down our country, and we're seeing the fruit of that pretty obviously, and you're doing something about it. And you actually have a way of growing that to help other communities do the same thing. And that has tremendous impact. And quite frankly, from what I've seen in Pakistan, to see these kids totally change tells me if it can happen in Pakistan, you're right. It can happen in Indiana, California, wherever we want it to go. And so I guess it's been a good experiment to do it in a country like Pakistan and see that it actually works. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just think that the floodgates are opening, and I think that, okay, I'm just going to say it. People have got to get outside the system and band together, and people are the only way that this is going to change this huge mess that our kids are up against. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's people have to make this change and make this work, because our kids deserve the truth, and this is the truth.
Okay. So what is your website? How does someone go to learn more from Reading Bootcamp?
Reading Bootcamp Rocks, RBC Rock. I'm going to start rbcrocks.com.
R as in Robert, B as in boy. So Reading Bootcamp, RB Rocks, ROCKS.
RBC Rocks, rbcrocks.com.
Super. All
Yeah.
right. Hey, thank you so much for your time and what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Good night.